It's like if you put Jack Sparrow in Schindler's List.
Now dig on this.
Welcome, one and all
Hey-o!
to Classic Movie Banter.
We're
You
here.
know that podcast where me, that guy Brenton, and that other guy who is always, for some reason, at the end of the table, Nathan.
Hey-o!
We talk about movies that are older than 20 years, or in this case, Nathan.
81 years!
Thank you very much. And we tell you, our enigmatic listeners, if they are still worth watching today or not. And more importantly, if they're worth getting your mates around on a Thursday night, if they're free. You know, we don't condone inviting everyone over, and if someone's not free, you still hold the event. Like,
You can watch a movie on your own, can't you?
you can, but it has to be on a Thursday night. That's the only deal.
That's the thing. Like, we were chatting to listeners earlier in the week, and like I was asking about, do you have to do it on a Thursday night? We always say Thursday night. You watch movies whenever you want, man.
Well, you can, but I don't condone watching movies not on a Thursday night. You know what I mean?
I'm glad we could say that officially on air, Brent.
Yeah, you're scum if you don't watch movies on a Thursday night.
Tell us how you really feel, mate.
That was a joke, to be clear, one and all. You know, I get very worried when I say stuff like jokes such as that on the show, because I know that you edit it and you can take anything I say out of context.
But most of the time I just leave it in. I'm just like...
Yeah, you've got a little bit of me saying you are scum, and you can just, just derail my entire life with that.
I could see why you're nervous, Brenton, because, as we do our first major review of 2021, we've decided to stumble into Nazi Germany. Oh no.
Yeah. Well,
How did we get here?
Not quite Nazi Germany, but a fictionalized version that is basically Nazi Germany without saying it's Nazi Germany.
It's pretty much Nazi Germany, isn't it? Like, let's not beat around the bush,
But well, no, let's not beat the bush. Please, the bush did nothing. But let's just celebrate for a second, because this is the first official movie review of 2021.
Yeah.
Hey, welcome one and all to that. That's
I'm so glad 2020 is behind us. Even now, I'm still celebrating.
Yeah, that was a heck of a time. But we're looking forward. We're looking ahead
into the year of 1940.
Yeah, exactly. Well, we're looking ahead on a podcast that specifically looks back to 1940. This isn't the oldest film we've reviewed on the show, but it's getting close to it.
Isn't it, though? Because it is The Great Dictator, Brenton, where we're doing Charlie Chaplin, finally.
Mate, this movie was directed, produced, written, and starred Charlie Chaplin. Or as, what's his name in the opening credits? It's,
Charles Chaplin?
Charles Chaplin, that's exactly right. Yeah, not Harold Chaplin.
But to us, Brenton, he's Charlie, he's an old mate. We call him Charlie.
Charlie's such a good mate. What a guy. But yeah, we're here to talk about The Great Dictator. So, Nathan, to get our show on the roll, because we've stuffed around enough, do you have a question for me?
Let's talk about The Great Dictator. Pitch me this movie. Can you pitch me the movie?
All right, so we're on the Western Front in 1918, and we're back. And we're following a Jewish private played by one Charles Chaplin, who's fighting for the nation of Tumania, the fictional nation of Tumania, and it's the final assault, man. Like, it's all just going down, and he comes across this pilot that's got plans that could save them and end the war and lead them to a victory for Tumania. But as it plays out, we find out that in fact they lose the war. And 20 years later, the barber who has been hospitalized due to suffering amnesia from a knock to the head from a plane crash. I know, he survived. Wonderful.
Wow.
He now has amnesia. You know what I mean? He can't remember who he is or what's going on. He just remembers he's a barber in the ghetto of Tumania. But also in that 20 years, another person who kind of looks like the barber has come on the rise.
Who could it be?
It is the great, not emphasis on great, dictator, Mr. Hinkle.
Is that actually his name, Hinkle?
Yeah,
It's like a Sesame Street character. Here comes Mr. Hinkle.
Here comes Big Bird and his friend Mr. Hinkle.
Oh dear.
Oh god. Oh dear. Anyway, so Hinkle is basically Hitler. Who knew? Who would have thunk it? And Hinkle is comically trying to take over the world whilst exterminating the Jews.
Yes. This is a comedy, isn't it, Brenton?
Exactly. Like, this is the thing. The way I want to end this pitch is basically by saying that whilst we're dealing with very touchy subject matter, this is a satire. And at the same time, like I said, the point is the hilarity of Hinkle's rise to power and the way that he conducts his ways as the Great Dictator. And the way that the barber and the Jewish people and other heroes of that generation undermined that rise to dominance by Hinkle and hopefully change the world for the better. So that is The Great Dictator.
Okay, I'm here as a Hollywood executive, and I've seemed to miss, character arcs and plot and and the 3 acts, but like, sure, I guess following Hitler sounds like a fun time.
Yeah, I don't want to.
Oh, that's a bad audio bite. I'm sorry, listeners. Following Hitler is not a fun time. Watching Charles to portray Hitler might be a fun time.
Yeah, there's been a few of those. I feel like today that it's been like
it's gonna be a rough ep. Buckle in, listeners.
But yeah, because we're dealing with touchy subject matter. And just to rip the Band-Aid off, the reason that I guess it's touchy, because obviously, the Second World War happened and it was due to Hitler's rise to dominance and whatnot. But at the same time, this movie has a funny way, it's got a funny tone, doesn't it? Of the
tone's a bit all over the place, isn't it?
Yeah, dealing with very serious subject matter, but like still being a bit silly. But at the same time, still being touching and profound. It is kind of all over the place at once.
Isn't it though?
And it rides this line that I've seen kind of this tone kind of done before, but not for a while. It's very rare to see this done and to see it done well. Nathan, do you think they pulled it off?
No, I don't. This is all over the place, this movie. It's like, it's held as some of like Chaplin's best work, so I was so geared up for it, but like, I'm so glad you started with tone, mate. The whole time, I felt this movie had no clue what it wanted to be, and it felt like it was trying to like please all audiences at once. And like, I don't even think it's been that rare we've seen this done. Like what? Jojo Rabbit was like, 2 years ago? I felt it did a much better job of taking such a serious subject matter and saying something intelligent and funny about it. Even films about Dictator, even like, Sacha Baron Cohen's like The Dictator, I think said more about authoritative figures than this. I don't know, like, because it's Charlie Chaplin, right?
Yeah, it is.
It's Charlie Chaplin. This is
I can confirm that is Charlie. Yeah,
like we've inherited him from the silent era. This is a guy whose primary shtick is slapstick, right? So you got this bloke who's used to like pulling funny faces and twiddling about a cane, and you've suddenly got him playing Hitler, and also this is still like his kind of Trump-esque figure with the barber. You got this dual role, and the film doesn't really decide if it wants to be with Team A or Team B, you know what I mean? And they never kind of really mesh together.
What do you mean by that? You mean like Team A or Team B as in like the dual protagonists, I guess? Like,
yeah, it's like, it feels like Charlie is doing his own little thing and no one else was told about it. You know what I mean? Like, he's doing this, like, it feels like he rocked up on the set of Schindler's List and he's doing this kind of weird, kind of goofy thing as both Hitler and the barber. And Liam Neeson's just looking at him going like, what are you doing, mate? It's like, we're here to tell a World War II story. You know what I mean?
Yes and no. I can totally understand your point of view. Like, I totally get it. I agree in the sense that it is constantly all over the place. And yes, Chaplin's performance is out of place, not only just as the dictator, but as the barber as well. Like, in just kind of the everyday sense. I guess, like, to talk about my opinions on it, I guess I have to kind of take you through the narrative of me watching the film. So I guess, like, from the start, because we open, obviously, on, at the end of World War One.
Yeah.
And we see the final kind of hours of World War One from the perspective of
and
this
like
barber
that.
character. You did like that.
It promised good things to come. It's like,
wow, okay. See, for me, I was the opposite. I was going, I was feeling like you. I was like, wow, like, it's really interesting to watch this, this setting of World War One, like this trench warfare and whatnot, and then to move from that to the skies and to see like artillery cannons and whatnot and all this stuff, and you're like, wow, this is quite, like, this is a war, we're watching. And then you have Charlie Chaplin running around.
There's a soldier. I think we're in a war.
It's all happening. But then you have Charlie Chaplin that's running around, and he's
just an idiot, and he's too dumb in this movie. He's way too dumb.
Well, he's just all over the place. Like, he's pointing the artillery cannon at the ground, and we have all this slapstick going on, and I'm like, I don't know how I feel about this. This is a bit all over the place.
It's like if you put Jack Sparrow in Schindler's List,
Yeah.
Which, by the way, I'd pay money to see.
As a viewer, I wasn't quite settled yet. And as it continued then, as we did the 20 years into the future, and we saw the Hinkle, and we saw, Hinkle was introduced. We saw the way he runs his business and whatnot. I started to warm to it. And kind of like, there was a moment I remember, and it was during one of Hinkle's scenes, when he's in kind of his, it's like basically a montage of him being, how he runs his day-to-day life.
Like, it's funny at times.
Oh, I thought this movie was marvelous. I really did. Like, I had a total 180 after kind of that opening of like, I wasn't sure where I sat. And I think that's part of its genius, is that it kind of rides this line of like presenting the truth of the situation, because it is kind of the truth of what's, was happening at the time, and also providing a satire and to send up the ridiculous ridiculousness of Hitler and
his dogma.
Exactly. And so I think that it always rides that line. And then at the same time, we introduce this Barber character, which is where I was enjoying so much of the satire of the Hitler character. And then so when I'd go back to the Barber, that storyline wasn't quite sitting with me either. But where it goes, I think goes somewhere really quite profound. And obviously we end this film on a message of, I don't really want to spoil it, but we end the film on a message that
it's hard,
is
isn't
contrary to what we're presented with.
Because like the whole film, I'm thinking, what's this about? Like, what are we learning from what is Charlie Chaplin's take on Hitler right now? And it's interesting because he wrote it before World War II. Like, he was making this as World War II started, so it's a really unique perspective where he was kind of at the cutting edge of it.
That's exactly right. And I think that adds to it as well, to be honest. I think like on its own merit, like when you consider that Jojo Rabbit came out a couple of years ago, when you can there's a lot of films that have tackled this, but when you consider, and I think this is what's really kind of remarkable as well when you watch it, is that like when because there's no way of shirking the fact that that Chaplin was in the midst of this event when it was happening, and he kind of spoke out and did this, and so it's profound on that sense as well. And I hate to, because I like to watch movies on this show obviously on their own merit. I try to take everything that's kind of happening behind the scenes out of it. Like we talk about it, but we try to judge it away
I'm
from
doing that. Like I don't want to give Chaplin the props up and be more forgiving with this movie because of what he physically did behind the scenes.
But I'm not saying to be forgiving. I'm saying that I think you're right. I think you're right in the sense like watch it with a modern gaze to take away the what's going on at the time. But at the same time, like when I watch this, that adds to it in a way that I've never kind of felt before from like any of the other movies we've really reviewed.
What did you feel?
I think it adds to it. Well, I just felt this profound sense of kind of pride, I guess, watching this movie, of being like, wow, like this is so.
But this isn't like Churchill's Dunkirk speech where you're like, fuck yeah, he's given the finger to the Nazis, and like I can see why that's almost like a praise to it, because you are seeing like Chaplin give this finger to the Nazis, like as they were rising in power.
That's right.
But I don't think that should be a reason you like a movie in that sense,
No, but I disagree in the sense of like when I watch it today, like there's just no shaking the fact that like that you're gonna have that emotion when you watch this.
Oh yeah, I guess it evokes that response.
Yeah, and so like I think it's worth bringing up. And then on top of that, the thing I really like about this movie is that it kind of still humanizes the event and grounds the event in a way that I know is shocking, because obviously we're watching like slapstick and we're watching Chaplin, at his best.
I think that hurts it actually.
Oh really? Like I disagree. I think
it just felt so out of place.
But I disagree in the sense of like I get that you're saying that it's out of place in terms of the tone of the film and the subject matter of the film, but it's an escape. It's this way of humanizing. Like humor is a way of like humanizing us all and connecting us all.
Yeah, I'm all for like escapism to deal with trauma, especially with all this. But like I don't think Chaplin was doing it for that reason. I don't think he just threw in the slapstick because it's like, oh, this will distract from this pretty shit scenario that's going on. I think he was just doing it because that's what he does.
Oh, see, I disagree. I think this was like him trying to send a very clear message, and I think that
also the message is so simple. Like it's just like fuck the Nazis, and it's like, and also from like a 2021 perspective, it's like, yeah, we know. It's like we know the Nazis are bad. It's like
totally
sure, in 1940, I guess that would have been. I mean, they knew for years what the Nazis were doing in Germany, but like, because they're rising throughout the 30s, and Chaplin was made aware. But like at the same time, what we do on this show is look at it through a 2021 lens now, and so we're like, what are we getting from this that we wouldn't get from something else? We've done what, Cabaret on this show. We've done, what other World War II films have we done? I guess Bridge on the River Kwai could kind of count. Oh, that's more later on, but like, you know what I mean? Like we've done.
Yeah, totally. But my point is, I guess where I'm headed with this is saying that using all of this, and like Chaplin is using like his best, he's putting his best foot forward in terms of like what he does best. Of course he is, but like he's also, like I said, making a clear message. And so like when you watch this, I think,
what's the clear message?
But the message is pretty clear, and I don't think it's just fuck the Nazis, dude. Like I think like obviously like we're sending up Hitler and whatnot,
and Mussolini.
Yeah, we can't forget Mussolini. We can't forget him. But I think there's a message here of, obviously, I don't want to spoil it.
But here's the thing. Okay, cut out the final speech, the very famous final speech that this movie is known for. Cut all that shit out. Imagine that wasn't in there. What would this movie be saying without it?
Oh, I still think that it's going for the similar message. I think it's obviously a message of inclusivity. It's obviously something that is trying to like bring people together, to bring the world together, to bring humanity together, and to put our best foot forward into listening to each other, and to like I think.
But see, you say stuff like that, and my mind just jumps to bloody Charlie Chaplin making pig noises as Hitler. You know what I mean? It's just like, I don't think for a lot of this movie it has the intelligent underpinning to kind of convey that, Oh,
see, I full-heartedly disagree. I think this movie is quite intelligent with the way that it's spreading the message of like, I think that's a message in itself to present Hitler in that way. Obviously, like...
It's almost pantomime.
But it is. But again, it's juxtaposed by everyone else in the world that is having to deal with this, like, complete moron. And I think the message of this is obviously that communication is key.
Yeah, it's a pretty broad message, mate. And it's like, I don't come to a Charlie Chaplin World War II thing to learn that communication is key. It's like you get that nearly other piece of work, you know?
Well, what if you're just going to look at Charlie Chaplin through the lens of just being Charlie Chaplin, then you're not giving like the artist the due of like, may it can be something more than what they are.
But that's the thing, I didn't buy him as Hitler. That's the biggest thing as well. But like, I don't even know why he wasn't Hitler. I don't know why he just didn't come out and say, I'm Hitler in this movie. Like, he's got the fake name and everything, because it's so obviously Germany.
Yeah, but I think like, again, like... Again, like, you know, if this was made today, obviously you can just come out and say it's Hitler, but like, it's being made in 1939. So obviously they're, you know, I think like, obviously, ideally they would have loved to have like come out and say like, oh yeah, this is Hitler and this is, you know, Mussolini and these are all these, you know, characters in this world, in our world right now.
I'm genuinely trying to imagine if this was made today, you know? It's like...
Oh, I don't think it would be made today.
No.
Obviously.
I think Sacha Baron Cohen would be the closest. It's kind of doing a contemporary deconstruction in that sense, but like, you could argue Michael Moore with his documentaries, but like, I mean, I guess, okay, sure. I don't think narratively the plot's that interesting, and I don't think you see a bunch of character arcs. Also, they're so incongruous. It's like this, like there's a female kind of, you know, side character to Chaplin.
Yeah.
I swear she was told she was in a different movie. She's trying to give this like Oscar-worthy, like the sun will come out tomorrow if we all band together kind of thing, and Chaplin's just kind of like fucking about around her, you know?
That's right. I think that everyone else apart from Chaplin in the movie is like grounding the world. So I think like when you have these two characters like that are like kind of juxtaposing everyone, that's the point. You know what I mean?
But like, that's the thing. It may be the point, but I don't think it works.
That's fair enough.
Yeah.
That's like I said at the start. I think that's fair enough that you watch it and you go like, oh, this isn't for me.
But I don't even think it's not for me. Like you said, it was funny. Like I thought a lot of the jokes fell flat. Like, they were so childish in that sense. And like, but by the way, it's humor from 1939, so of course it's going to be like that. You know, it's like a pre-Monty Python world.
I thought there was moments in this that were genuinely like hilarious. Like I think like some of the moments where like Hinkle is like, you know, going about his daily business are like absolutely hilarious.
But it's far and few between. This film crawls. Christ, this is actually out of all 138, this is the slowest film I think I've ever watched for the podcast.
Oh, jeez. Yeah, I totally disagree. Like,
wow.
I think
look at you and me on either end. Like,
yeah, I think this movie was incredibly well paced. Like, I really do. I think that the start 10 minutes again, like, were probably the longest 10 minutes of the film. And then I think once it got going, I was really taken by this.
Okay, let's go to some technical stuff that I think I can argue well. I think this film's guilty of trying to be a silent film, because for a lot of it can't really tell if it wants to be dialogue or silent. And fair enough to Chaplin, because it's his first spoken movie. But there's a lot of weird moments where there's just like dead silence, and you just kind of see him.
Yeah, I would agree. I would agree. So I would say that stuck out to me only in the first 10 minutes, and like specifically with the artillery segment of.
Oh, not him just walking around the streets like with the paint or anything like that. Like
no, that was all fine.
Did you get used to it?
Good.
Is that what you're saying? Like
no. I think that like at the start, like technically, I can see what you were saying, that there was an argument to be made there, because I agree. There was the same criticism at the start that I was like, this is like we've just gone from a talkie into a silent movie, and now we're going back into a talkie. Whereas I think after that, it was fine. Like him walking through the streets with the paint and whatnot, like it was still in the world. There was still sound from the world. It made sense. Like it was.
Oh, it makes sense.
Fine.
I'm just saying it doesn't work. Like there's a lot of silences in this movie, like a lot of them. And it's just like, and it's relying on the physical performance to kind of carry that. And it's like,
yeah, but like, okay, well, for instance, like I disagree again, like, because like if you have like Hinkle, say like walking through the halls of his huge, you know, Capitol building or whatever that building is, I don't know if it's his mansion or I don't know what it's
his
meant to be, but his palace, yeah. If he's walking through the halls of that, right, there is still noise happening within the world, and there's still noise he is making, and there's still like dialogue being spoken. I think like,
there was maybe not that one, but there were scenes where there was quite literally no sound coming from this movie. That there was frequent spots of that.
Perhaps, yeah. Like I'm actually just trying to recall moments aside from like that opening 10 minutes when I can actually recall that, because I can't.
I'm not saying in the opening 10 minutes. I'm saying in the whole movie of the 2
That's
hours.
What I know. I know what you're saying, but I'm saying myself, like I can't.
But it didn't bother you. That's what you're saying. Like,
well, yeah, well, no, not even that. I'm saying I literally can't remember any moments apart from that first 10 minutes where that was the case.
Oh.
So like, I'm not saying that you're wrong.
No.
I'm saying that like obviously that's a reflection of me being like, well, maybe like the movie just made me like not notice it. Like I was just like, oh, like, you know, it was fine, or like it was in the grasp of the world, or it just didn't bother me. It didn't, like, honestly, it just didn't even cross my mind.
So, like, technically, it's like, because for a film from 1940, I didn't think technically it was that jarring as far as, like, the actual craft of the movie. I didn't think, I think it still holds up visually in that sense. Like,
yeah, totally. I agree.
Yeah.
Like, but again, I don't think there's any, like, moments where you're like, oh, wow, the camera's doing such amazing movement.
No.
Like, wow, what a profound shot or whatnot. There's probably one that could be like, oh, wow, that was really artistically, like, really cool. But it was more, again, about the action on the screen as opposed to, like, where the camera's placed. But, it was capturing it well, so I can't, diss it. But, like, at the same moment, I'm not going to walk into this and be like, whoa, this is like Roger Deakins level.
No,
like,
of course not. Did you find that audio-wise, because there's a lot of sped-up sequences, this film is very guilty of just pressing fast forward on the tape and you're seeing all these characters moving in fast motion. And then, like, I guess maybe today we notice it a lot more than back then. But, like, I don't know, for me, now in 2020, it just comes across as sloppy. I know why it wasn't back then. But I think just today in a modern context, I don't know if it looks that good.
Again, there was only a couple moments where it stuck out to me. Like, and it was in that start bit. There was a bit on the plane and there was a bit with the cannon and there was a bit with the machine gun that I was like, this is just, this isn't quite, I agree. Well, it was a bit jarring. But then after that, like, again, I can't quite recall moments of being jarred, I guess, by the movie.
Yeah.
I was in it after that.
I don't know. It's just throughout the movie, I just felt, you know what I think it is? And I'm going to draw a comparison. Have you seen the movie Aeroplane? With the exclamation mark?
No.
Oh, okay. It's a comedy in that very similar sense where a lot of characters are pulling funny faces and it's very physically based as comedy. And I think it might be subjective, but it's just not my cup of tea. Whenever I saw in this movie Charlie Chaplin, pulling a stupid face or Mussolini being like, oh, or like, his sidekicks all being a little bit goofy, I'm just like, it just doesn't mesh. I just felt so like, I was really waiting for something intelligent to be said, but he just kept on pulling like a funny face as Hitler. I'm like, that's not enough, mate. It's like, and you know what? So Chaplin did an interview after this, and he wrote in his 1964 biography that he wouldn't have made this film if he had known about the true horrors of the Nazi camps, like the concentration camps. He didn't know because like the world didn't know by that point to that large extent. He's like, I wouldn't have made it, and I can so see why, because looking at this, it's like you're not dealing with this kind of shit. It's hard in hindsight to look back at this and see, them all rest on their funny faces and their big movements and like, oh, look at me, I'm an idiot, and making racist Italian sounds when they're pretending to be Italian and racist German sounds when they're trying to be German. And like, think this is a commentary on, on humanness. You know what I mean?
I think that I think again that you're like, and I think it's, to be honest, in this conversation, I think it's unfair, like, to bring, because again, if we're going to talk about like leaving, the context of like out of like, we're just viewing this with the modern lens without the context, like, I'm just going to take the Chaplin comment out of it. Like, I'm just going to take that completely out of it. Because, like, fair enough, like, you look back and you go like, wow, like, I didn't know about like the concentration camps and whatnot, and like, that just makes me feel like sick and whatnot. And I regret making this movie because like, that's such a horrible, thing. And, I wish I'd known that before I'd made the movie, because then I would be able to comment more on that as well and, bring that into the sphere of what I was trying to create. So I'm going to take that out of it for a second, because obviously, like, hindsight's a wonderful thing for Chaplin in that sense.
Yeah. And for us.
Yeah, totally. But when I watch the movie on its merits and I take everything that happened in history and whatnot, and I look at, that all of those atrocities that were committed, I think that you, Nathan, are undermining the significance of, like, you just call it, like, you're just throwing away, like, the term, like, the funny face or whatever. When it was like, the funny face is the point. The funny face isn't the funny face on its own merit. The funny face isn't trying to make you laugh at the funny face on its own merit. It's juxtaposed with the real world that is happening in the world. So Hitler is like an exaggeration because Hitler was an exaggerated figure in history. So like, when you watch that character on screen, I'm not necessarily laughing at the funny face. Like, I'm laughing at kind of the honest truth of the situation. Because if you don't laugh, you'll just be like, fuck, like, I'm just watching this dictator literally, like, walk around this palace and just casually, like, add legislation that...
Or just have his henchmen die. Or he just kills...
Totally. Or just casually just being like, let's legislate to commit genocide. Like, that's...
I mean, you don't see that in this movie. There isn't really a hint of like...
No. But no, we do. We
see the Jewish ghettos, but like...
Yeah. But there's literally lines where it's like, let's just like, destroy, let's just ruin the Jews, basically.
Publicly anti-Semitic. It's like, yeah.
Like, within that palace. And my point is, I guess, is that like... Well, my point is, that's the point. I'm not saying that like... And no, I'm not saying that like, again, that like, you can't laugh at this movie.
I wasn't laughing because of the subject matter. I was just laughing because the jokes didn't land for me, like, personally.
I get that, but I'm saying that like, they landed for me, and like, I'm reflecting on myself as why they landed to me, and I think it's that. Because I think like, when you take the context of like, what it's actually saying, it is funny in the sense of like, you're watching like this guy...
you're watching a bumbling idiot try and run a nation. It's like,
well, yeah, like not even. I wouldn't even say a bumbling. Well, yes, like
I mean, this interpretation of Hitler is a bumbling idiot. It's like
is a bumbling idiot, yeah. But you're watching like the result of that like happen on screen, and like obviously I'm not laughing at the context of like what is actually happening.
Yeah,
I'm laughing because like again, I think it's affecting me in a way that like it was making me reflect on the modern world, I guess, in a sense as well.
It reminds me a little bit of The Big Short. Like that's a comedy, but I found that more of a horror film than a comedy because you're watching these idiots manage the stock market, and I'm like, Jesus, like this has fucked us over.
Totally. But again, like I will say that there are slapstick moments in this that we'll get to because there's one that's literally.
I know it's hard to defend the movie when we have to do non-spoilers. It's like
totally.
There are scenes like that. See, there are scenes that worked, and there are scenes I loved, but like I don't know. It's like when I watch Alec Baldwin like pull funny faces as Trump. It's like you can say so many more intelligent things than just that. You know, it's like we know Hitler's an idiot. We know like not to draw parallels between the two, they're very different men. But whenever you see a comedian take on a cantankerous world leader, it's like, I don't know. I wanted the final scene where we see Chaplin, do a speech. This movie's very well known for it. I wanted that to be the whole movie. You know what I mean? It felt like that's the dessert. I should have been eating the whole fucking meal.
I think that moment doesn't work without the movie supporting it.
Oh, I agree as well. But
I don't think we get the payoff of that moment if you don't have the ridiculousness and you don't have all this shit leading up to that moment, because it's the moment that just like hits home of what we've actually watched. You know what I mean? So I think you can't have one without the other.
I'm saying pepper more of it in. I'm saying let's
see for me it's no. It's
you say don't touch it. It's like
be one way to the whole thing and then like hit, and then that ending just hits home. Like that's the point.
And it does hit home, and like the ending's so fucking good. It's probably the best speech I've ever done in cinema. But like I'm almost wanting to forgive the movie for that scene alone because it's so good, isn't it? Like,
but for me, and here's the thing as well. Maybe it's for me watching it because I know that speech is coming. You know what I mean? Like I know that speech is coming.
It's I think the only thing I knew about this movie. I don't think I knew anything else going in besides the speech.
I knew what it was.
Had you seen the speech before?
I'd seen the speech before when I was like 2 years ago. I'd seen it.
Right? I was at 2 years old. Like, well, you might.
And I understood everything it was saying.
Come on, baby Brenton.
As a 2-year-old. But yeah, so I think that maybe viewing it, like knowing that's coming as well, is just like, I guess is flavoring my opinion of it because I know it's going to hit home at the end and I know what's coming and I know what he's doing with all this stuff. And I think it's very relevant. And you brought up the Alec Baldwin thing, and like, you could say that they're doing similar things. I think Charlie Chaplin's probably more successful in this, like you said, than Baldwin is.
Charlie Chaplin versus SNL. It's like, come on.
But there's a reason that Baldwin's kind of given that voice and why that has an audience. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
Because it does work on its own merit at the same time. I think it's hard to just throw away someone being like, oh, there's so much more you can say with that. But
there is.
But I think they are still saying a lot.
Oh, I think Charles is doing the best he could have done at the time. I'm not criticizing him for that. I think like he did if I saw this in 1940, I would be in tears and I'd be applauding. I'd be going, throwing roses at the stage. But it's like, but I'm not. I'm watching this in 2021. And there's a great quote from an author whose name I'm forgetting, where they said, authors should never write about current world events until I think 20 years after they happen. Because they say if there's just not enough nuance or insight into that event yet, there needs to be time. It's like how right now we're only seeing now some great 9/11 works start to emerge. It's like you're too close to it. In the same way, like I don't want to see anything about the coronavirus at least till like the 2030s. You know what I mean?
Okay,
it's like
that's fair, dude. That's totally fair enough. Like I like that's a fair enough point from that author, and like I would probably be inclined to agree with it. But if every artist took heed of that message and only did that, then there would be no voice coming out from the time. So like you need that still at the same time. Like I get context is everything, but like that's what makes this special because it was made at the time. So like
it's a selling point. It's like I can't attack the film for it, can I?
But again, I knew you were going to say that, but it's not its only selling point. You know what I mean? You can still watch this today, I think, like, because I did, and it can still reflect on, like, not only that point in history, but you can reflect to today. Because the message at the end of the speech at the end of this film, at the end of the day, I know it's very famous, but it's famous for a reason, and it's still played all the time. And it should be
mandatory, and it's so applicable to today's stuff, right?
Yeah, totally. That's exactly right.
Yeah.
But again, that speech doesn't work in the context of this movie without the movie itself holding it together. There's a reason I think that we're still obsessed with this period in history, like because it's always going to be relevant, right? And I'm not saying that like,
but it's not World War II I'm attacking. It's like I think, by the way, there are dramatically better World War II films that we've seen, right?
No.
Like, this is not your favorite World War II movie.
No, I know you're not attacking it on that basis, but my point is that there's a reason that I think people can still watch this today and get something out of it. That's my point.
I feel like we're a heartbeat from the rating, Brenton. Should we have some Willem Dafoe?
Yeah, of course.
You're fond of me lobster, ain't you?
Yeah, I'll go first because I'll let you contradict me after
You can already see like holding the
I-
baseball bat ready
Yeah,
for the ball to be swung. Like,
No, it's totally. I'll give the thumbs up, and then you can give the thumbs down. So yeah, for me, look, whilst I wrestled with this for some time, I was like, because I know people will watch this today and not enjoy it, and
mates on a Thursday night, Brenton, you'd give them the Great Dictator, like the whole thing.
but see, like, okay, but I'm weird. I don't even know if I'm weird, but like I've weird.
It's what our listeners have surmised after over 2 years.
That would probably find a good have some fun watching that. Well, not have fun, but like
No.
Oh gosh, this episode's so full of like comments where we're just like we're not saying it in the context of like
we
what
know
the movie's
World
about,
War II
but
was
we're
bad.
saying,
We know the
it,
Nazis
guys.
suck. We
know
promise
what
we're not
happened.
alt-right.
Hitler was not a good guy, to be clear. And I'll say that in a serious voice. Hitler was not a good guy, to be clear, because, oh God, Nathan, we're going to dig ourselves into a hole. Anyway.
We are going to slip up and say something really anti-Semitic at one point. We'll be like, we're so sorry.
Hopefully not. Anyway. Yeah, look, so if we're viewing this movie on its own merit, I think it still honestly holds up. I think that whilst the opening 10 minutes, you're still trying to understand like what tone this is going for, and whilst it's a bit over the place, it's still like, using techniques used in the silent era and the talkie era of the time. At the same moment, the brilliance of it is that it's kind of balanced all of these things at once. Yes, I think it's, for a lot of it, for me, it really succeeds, and some moments it doesn't succeed, as I pointed out. But at the end of the day, I think that what this film does well totally overshadows those moments where it's not hitting home exactly kind of, I think, what it's setting out to achieve. Obviously, in the historical context of this as well, this movie is very important at the time of watching this. Like, you could probably watch this in a history class and the professor would be like telling you, if we had a professor on today, for example.
Bring back Jane. I really wish we had Jane here today. Oh, every episode I wish we had Jane.
I would love it as well, yeah. And like I said, like...
Look under your seat, Brent, and guess who it is?
Professor Jane?
But you know what I mean? It's like, because crikey, academics would love this one, wouldn't they? They'd bloody pull it apart like nothing else. But we're not, Brenton. We barely passed high school.
We really struggled, guys. So... Film studies class was a bitch. I had to watch Tobey Maguire in The Great Gatsby. I mean,
oh no.
In closing, despite all of that and all those kind of plates being balanced at once, I think that there's still something profound here. There's still something to be enjoyed here, and there's a message here that I think is important to watch. And I think people today can watch this. It's not too long.
You know what? I've heard you say this before, actually, where it's like, there's something in here for people to watch. I feel like it's a common kind of prop that you'll give a film that maybe. There's something in here for something. It's like, you can say that about a lot of movies though, but like, it's the overall product.
Totally. But yeah, no, I totally get that. But of course. But I'm saying that I understand why people would watch this with a modern lens today and be like, oh gosh, I'm watching like a black and white film with this cartoonish guy that's running around basically and doing slapstick stuff. Like, this is just not my thing. It is so like out of date and I just can't watch this. I'd rather watch Jojo Rabbit. And that's totally fair enough.
It's what people say every day, Brenton.
It's what Nathan expressed on this bloody episode. But my point is that there is something in here. I think it's going to be like half and half. I think today this film would divide people, and I think there'd be half that would really appreciate it, that would find the hilarity in some of the situations, and would walk away with that profound message and have enjoyed the film and being able to recommend the film without watching it with that historical context, without watching it in a film class or whatever it is. I think there's still enjoyment to be had. So I'm going to give it a thumbs up. I think it sells itself.
It's easy like that.
Nathan, you go.
It's we haven't had a real disagree episode in a while, to come to think of it. Like, I think the last one.
I can't remember what the last one was.
It's maybe like, it would have been a while. Like, did you like Return to Oz? I can't remember now. It's like, it's been a while. Maybe even Black Cauldron, who knows? It's like, the titles stand out that we don't agree on. But like, it's not the fact he's making jokes about World War II. It's not like, how dare he touch this subject matter. It's like, I just wanted something more intelligent, something more nuanced about. But again, why am I looking at the guy who makes a slapstick for a living and saying, give me something nuanced about World War II? It's like...
Yeah, but I'm just going to step in again, and it's like, I really hate how you keep saying that, like, into saying that it's like, he's not intelligent, and he's like, it's just like a simple thing, because there is an artistic comedic element to that, and there is something to that it's not just as simple as you might make it seem.
I know.
And I think
I know that's the truth because of the speech, and like I know that, but like I'll go into the rating. I'll go into the rating because like we're just dancing around here. Would I give this to my friends for Thursday night? No. I would say watch the speech. I would say YouTube, like you and I did before we saw this movie. Like Google the speech, give it a watch. If you move, that's great. If you like it, maybe watch the whole movie and then see if it works for you. But like, I don't know. It'll be interesting to see what you listeners think when we chat to you later in the week. Like, I want to hear what you guys think about this movie. Like, and it's hard. Like, spoiler it for passing it to the people. It was hard to find people that didn't like this movie, Brenton. So I know I'm in the minority.
Yeah, but at the same time, I think I don't think that's probably as. I think today, if you were like to do a poll today, if you were to get like 50 people in a room,
if only we had a polling mechanism, Brenton, that we could use.
Exactly. I'm so excited to do this poll, but I mean, like most of our listenership are film geeks, so like I'd say that it will still be there'll be still a fair few thumbs up. But I mean, like I think if you got like today's like modern audience, like if we went to a retro screening of this today and was all that was available at the movies that day,
that's a fun cinema.
There was people going on dates, you know, and they were like, oh, I guess
this is not a date movie, Jesus.
And you did a yes and no poll at the end of that. I think that it would be pretty even.
Oh well, I guess we'll have to find out later in the week then, Brenton.
When we announce the screening at our cinema, you know, in Nathan's house, and we'll invite everyone.
I'm like bribing
in.
like people who come in to I'm slipping them like fives, just saying, "Say you hated the movie." And you're there with a little clipboard, like what?
Hey, I'll extend the hand of like some agreement. This is totally not a date movie, is it?
This is not the date movie. Actually, let's get to that romance. All right, spoilers. You spoiled it.
What?
The movie.
Oh.
Okay. So, what's going on with this subplot with like the love interest?
Okay, so there's a scene in here that was very confusing, and I just like because I think this sums this whole plot, this subplot up,
doesn't it?
And it's the scene where he shaves her face.
It's so stupid. Oh.
Okay, so it was confusing for me because I was like, this character's quite clumsy, this Barbie character. And I was wondering the whole time, and I'm like, is he doing it because it's like an effect of his amnesia and he forgets that he's not meant to shave women?
Yeah. I think he's just a genuine idiot.
Or is he just love struck and he's just like, he just doesn't know what he's doing? It's one or the other. And like, I think the amnesia thing is more of an excuse than just like, oh, she's so pretty, I'm going to shave her face.
And it's the laziest writing to say amnesia. I always hate writers that use amnesia as a core plot
I don't
element.
like amnesia
it's like,
either.
fuck off, Charlie Chaplin. It's like,
I don't understand why we need it as well in this movie. That because okay.
Also, by the way, that plane crash should not give you amnesia. Like, there's whole other things you should be getting instead of that.
Well, that plane crash would probably kill you, but anyway.
Yeah, that's how the movie really starts. Just like they've been killed off.
But yeah, because I'm not sure why the amnesia plot is really here, and someone can probably tell me exactly why it's there. I'm sure you could look into the themes of this and the themes of the time and be like, it's a connection to this.
Oh, look at all the symbols.
But looking at it when I watched it, I was just like, this is only relevant to this one scene where the soldiers come and paint dew on his window, and then he tries to rub it off, and he doesn't understand what's going on, the fact that he's being like oppressed or whatever. He's like, I'm just a person, you know, like what's going on? I've just gotten out of the hospital, or like, you know, like that's the only scene that it's really relevant in.
Yeah, it's like he's like it's like Mr. Bean. It's like there's something not quite right here. It's like, but I think how Rowan Atkinson gets away with it. Well, one, he's not doing with the Second World War or being a Jew or anything like that.
Yet,
you know.
Wait till we get that Mr. Bean episode.
Oh wow! I'd pay money for that. But you know, seeing Charlie Chaplin do it, it's like it's interesting seeing his physicality in response to it. It made me actually want this movie to segue into the producers. I was kind of waiting for that kind of boisterous, like "Hail myself" to like jump out at one point.
I see what you're saying in that sense. That it's like, you know, it's a similar depiction of, well, not really that similar, but it's like it's a buffoon kind of playing up Hitler, like, you know, like
I know, and I liked her in it, but like, although I do think, sorry, I'm jumping around so much, Brenton, about this bloody film.
It's fine. It's all good. I like her because it's like this movie in that sense.
Yeah, it's like Chaplin with a balloon. It's like that's a scene.
Hey, that was the scene that I was talking about, where it's like that was probably the one artistic moment. I
love that.
It's like
It was the one thing outside the speech I loved in this movie.
Yeah, what a moment, hey! And I love
it comes out of nowhere.
Yeah, and like how the balloon pops at the end of it, like he does this full routine, and I love like the humping of the desk too. And
that's almost like a short film in itself, isn't it?
Well, it's almost like a little kind of could see being on like bloody BuzzFeed today. day of being like, look at this guy playing, like, let's go back to the Trump
it's
again.
Charlie
We're
Chaplin.
not comparing the two men, but let's bring like Trump and watch this dickhead like do this and
yeah. I feel like Charlie Chaplin was being the internet back in 1940. This feels like a very internet response to World War II. This movie.
I would totally agree with that, man.
Yeah, but it's also quite in the sense that now we're in spoilers, like, and they're saying it wasn't intelligent. Like, one of the gags is them just saying German words for like 5 minutes, and they're like sprechen, and they're like, or like it's the old fashioned joke of like him saying a long sentence, and then like the typist does it in like 1 second. You know what I mean? It's like jokes we've seen before, or them going banana. It's like, we've seen this. Come on.
I think my favorite thing with this joke is like my it's really funny is that every time they do it, because I think the German thing on its own like isn't that funny.
No, also
like,
racist,
him doing the
by
pig
the way.
noise. Yeah, totally. At the same time, no one else uses German in this movie apart from Hitler, which I think is interesting.
That is
I was
interesting.
like, this is what's funny about the joke, is that like he's using the German, and it's like he's being racist. It's like that's the point, right?
Yeah.
It's like him, like, and then everyone else just speaks English, and it's like it didn't happen, and it's like they can't understand what the fuck he's on about either. Like that's the funniest joke to me, is that like he'll say all that stuff, and then like what's his like right hand man, not the guy with all the medals.
the Joseph figure, like,
Is it Garbage?
yeah, it's
Is
like
that his
Joseph
name?
Goebbels, like,
yeah.
the Hitler's right hand man. It's like a take on that.
Garbage. I'm pretty sure. Yeah.
I think he's literally called garbage, which is funny.
Yeah,
Like,
yeah. He'll just be like, "Oh, do you think this, and this?" And then like Hitler will be like, "Oh, yes, I do." And it's like, what the fuck was that? Like that whole like 5 minute like thing he was on about. Again, it's there's a lot that can be said that's saying. I think that was really funny. I always like the moments where he'd like be going on about something and like in German.
Yeah.
Not that it really is German, but German. And then like it'd just break out into English and be back to normal, and you're just like, what the
See,
fuck
that's
is going on?
objectively funny. Like, I stand by that.
Yeah.
I think when it comes to subjective taste, I always lean more towards wit when it comes to my humor over like that kind of stuff.
That's still intelligent in its own right to like do that.
Yeah, intelligence can be found anywhere. in
Not
humor.
not the German stuff by itself, I agree,
Yeah,
but
yeah.
like, when it's juxtaposed with something and we're seeing like the opposite ends of the scale, that's the point. Yeah.
It's like, I get that. Like, for me, as far as good writing goes, I thought the best written joke was the blonde hair joke. I love that.
Oh gosh, yeah, that was
so funny.
That was great.
I
yeah.
genuinely cackled, and I'm like, oh, this is it. Like, and because it's so true. And I've always thought in real world, that's just a really funny thing that Hitler, he was so advocating, like, blonde haired people and like blue eyes. I'm like, mate, have you looked in the fucking mirror? It's like,
Yeah, it was. That's a great moment. It was a great moment. I do love these scenes between Hitler and Garbage. Like,
Yeah.
I think that they're really quite funny. But again, like, it's kind of true, that line. It's not really a joke.
No,
like
that's the
it's-
thing.
Like, it's not a joke at all. Like, and that's you're right. They're the best moments in the movie that are quite funny.
yeah.
That you're
I
like-
guess we're going to keep bringing up Trump because he's kind of our modern reference of a world leader looking quite silly. But it's like when you read out Trump tweets, it's like they're funny because that's shit that he said. You know what I mean? It's like,
Yeah.
in that same context, we're laughing at Hitler because that's a genuine thing. He wanted to have the world be one race. Like, it's so silly. And like comedians for decades have pointed it out and like poked fun at it.
Yeah.
It's like,
Yeah,
so, like,
totally.
It's so funny watching this in hindsight, Brenton. I gagged when they started talking about stormtroopers.
What do you mean? Why did you gag?
Because I completely forgot that stormtroopers were a thing outside Star Wars. It's been so long.
Yeah.
Like, obviously
Totally.
they got it from the Third Reich.
Yeah.
But like,
Totally.
it
Yeah.
made me just kind of want there to be actual stormtroopers in this movie.
God. I could do without it, but like,
The footage exists somewhere. There's been someone on the internet that stitched it together.
Someone's done it.
It's like hindsight's a very interesting thing. It's like also like when I think at one point the girlfriend was mentioning that like they should buy a chicken farm, and it made me immediately want this movie to segue to like Chicken Run, where they became Mr. and Mrs. Tweedy. It's like
Oh man,
it's
yeah.
hard watching this in retrospect. Like, okay, speaking of tone, because I know that's a big thing that like you and I talked about in non-spoilers. A classic example I want to bring to kind of support my thing is the coin dinner, where they're all kind of like, having coins to, work out who's going to kill themselves. It's such a dark subject matter to work out who's going to go on the suicide like mission.
There's so many funny things in the scene, but continue.
You got this like 5-minute sequence of them like, and we know from the start, like we the audience know that she's like put coins in every single one, so like we know what's coming. But it's just this extended sequence where you see these men genuinely have to like work out who's going to die, and they're all just trying to like swap coins on each other's plates. And then it ends with Chaplin just like bloody sprinkling them all out of his mouth.
What I think's great about that scene actually is that it is actually the opening gag, because the opening gag of the scene is basically Schultz, right? I guess he's the leader. Is to say like to everyone, someone has to die. That is going to happen, and everyone's like, whoa! Everyone like, gets rocked up to this meeting. Like,
They weren't aware. It wasn't in the notes. Like
We didn't sign up to this, that one person, single person was going to die. And he's like, and now is the meeting that we will decide that. And again, everyone kind of reacts like, oh, okay. But they're all kind of be like, oh, yes, we're very, you know.
I love that he suggests this, but he's like, but anyway, well, you decide who dies. I'm going to go.
Yeah.
He
Exactly.
just sidles out.
So that's the first joke, is him just being like, well, I'm the leader, so you guys work it out and I'll come back when it's all done.
It's so funny. It's like when like you're in primary school and that one kid's like, oh, I'll supervise the group. Well, like everyone else does the work. It's exactly that.
And then the way that and then the second layer is that the cakes come out and we have this whole fucking sequence where Charlie Chaplin, the barber, works out that if he tries and weighs every single one of these plates and he starts passing them around,
it's so
like
stupid.
it is so funny. And what's so funny about that moment is like, again, the physical comedy, but it's like also like just the relatable, like reactionary comedy of him just like kind of nodding to like everyone around the table like he's a nice guy when he's actually balancing and trying to work out how to fuck everyone over. And so anyway, so they all get these what are they? Are they pudding? I don't know.
Yeah, they look like
cakes,
puddings, don't they? They look good, by the way. Throwback to our food episode.
They look damn
good.
good.
An appearance.
They more than likely they would. I'm not sure if they'd top the.
I don't have to be the sacrifice, but you know, it's like, you know what? That's what they should have done in El Dorado. Just like give them like a bunch of cakes and just like all of the citizens just spit out coins.
Oh man! But also like one of my favorite gags is like it did. The point was there was dragging on of eating like all the coins, and then like all the other guys like looking at him thinking they've given him the only coin, and then him not saying anything, and the way they react to that, like, oh, like shit, like you know, like he's not saying anything, like this is, you know, he's obviously not found it, and everyone's looking on edge, and then when like the like the father figure goes, oh, I found the coin, and he stands up like, it is me, I will die, and they're all like, oh good.
Yeah.
Like, you know, and
they're
then,
all like,
like,
we dodged a bullet there, didn't we?
and then obviously that final moment where he spits out all the coins and everyone's just like, what?
What? Oh.
Could you imagine if you were sitting at a dinner table and someone just like spat out like 5 Australian 50 cents coins and you were just like, oh.
Doesn't he try to shit the coins at one point? Like you see his ass move and like you hear it drop or like jiggle. Like it's a weird scene, man. Like I don't know if I support it. Like he's not an ATM Brenton. I don't want money to be spitting out of him.
It's great. And I like that just nothing's resolved at the end of that. No. Like it's still like,
and it fades to black. There's a lot of fades to black after scenes, you know, where it's like, and now you can exhale and have a laugh. Ha ha ha.
It gives you time, this movie. Speaking of like, you know, fades to black, let's talk about the opening kind of segment.
Jesus Christ, that's a gun. Holy shit, that's a huge gun.
Yeah. And the way it's like he's like
Gatling? Like he's like rotating like the lever? Like
yeah, he's rotating and he's using his two things. And the way he goes upside down on that chair sometimes, I'm like, whoa.
That's a practical
like he's
effect.
actually doing
like,
that. Yeah, he's really doing I know it's sped up.
Huge props to Charles Chaplin, just as a performer in general, because he like jumps into chests in this movie and he's like ducking under sewers. Like the man's physicality is unparalleled. Like, you know, hats off to him.
It's very rare to see like that physicality, you know, like on screen and like, and someone that has got that much like ability.
It reminds me a bit of like Jim Carrey in his early days.
But not even so, because Jim Carrey is a tall man. Like this guy, his figure, his physique, the way he's got strength, he's got subtlety,
man.
he's got everything. And then, like you said, he can just fit into like a chest, like a point in it. You're like
when the Nazis come knocking and like he jumps in the chest and scares that one bloke. He's like, ugh.
Yeah, it's great. Like he's really just is like, you know, that like I don't know like if there'll ever be another Charlie. You know what I mean? Like someone that could do, like I know Buster, like out of that era, like I was always a huge fan of Buster Keaton, and I'd love to do like one of his films, because I just think there's something there that I just like is always just like I've always just preferred him. It's like asking like,
well, now we know which boy Brenton likes.
Exactly. No, I love Buster.
Just like drawing little love hearts around like a photo. Just
there's always these comparisons we make, like who was the better dancer, like of the era? Was it Gene Kelly or was it Fred Astaire? And people have their own preferences and whatnot. Yeah, I agree. It was
Gene by a mile.
he was the man. Again, like, because of his athleticism. But, like, people can say Fred, and you're like, you know, there you go. I wonder what today's one of those is. Like, who's the best? Is it, like, is it Joaquin Phoenix or is it Christian Bale? Who's the best method actor of today? Like, would it be that, do you think? Or what is Will Ferrell, or is it...
I thought it would be, like, a better lead. Like, who's the better lead in a comedy? Like, Kevin Hart or Dwayne The Rock Johnson?
Kevin Hart or Will Ferrell or something. Or I don't know. Like,
it's hard. It's not antagonistic. Also, because there's more people working today. Like, the media's been ever wider. So, like, we don't have to be this, like, team A or team B kind of thing, you know?
Totally. It'd be like... But but like that's very much of that time, you know what I mean? There's more than the two options, and there probably was at the time, but like I guess it's always, again, it might be just in hindsight, like maybe 40 years down the track we'll always look down at like, you know, the 2000s as like the era of Will Ferrell and Kevin Hart, and you know, which one was better, like which one did you prefer, or whatever.
Well, that's the thing.
Like,
there were so many like copycats of Chaplin at the time as well. So like, it's like he invented a genre, and you saw people play in his sandbox. It's like I really hate shitting on this film because I know what Charlie Chaplin did for cinema. He's so goddamn important to the whole medium. So that's why I hate, like, this is the thing that we've had to talk to him about. Like, dude,
but at the same time, dude, I don't, like, give yourself a little credit. I don't think you're shitting on it at all.
No. Oh, like, okay, forgive me. Let me proceed to then shit on this movie.
You've established that, you know, you understand like the artistry of Chaplin and like what he did for film, but like
the man's a genius. He's a genuine pioneer. Yeah. In the actual sense of the word pioneer. Like,
absolutely. Like I watch him in this movie, and I, you know, at the same time, because I don't think he's doing like the full extent of obviously his ability.
No, we're not seeing about the height of his powers. Definitely not.
No.
Have you seen this Tramp stuff?
Yeah.
Yeah. It's great, isn't it?
Yeah, it's awesome.
Yeah.
I guess in some ways we are seeing at the height of his power in some sense, because like we said, this is a talkie, and let's just get to the ending. Let's just talk about the speech.
Yeah.
Because I feel like that's a good segue.
Yeah. If you want me to praise this movie, you've picked the right, you've put the right drink in front of me, Brenton.
Yeah, what do you, I mean, like, what is there to say, really? You know,
it's extraordinary. And you know what? There are lines that really resonate with me. I love the way he talks about man and machines. I was like, that was really foresighting. Like it baffles me. This was written like pre-World War II. You know what I mean? Like, like it's so relevant. Like, you know, and it's like, you know, you're not soldiers, you know, you're men, use your heart, love it. Like, it's funny, like none of this shit is actually new when it comes down to like the things he's saying, but just the sequence and vigor that he delivers it in. It's so good. It makes me forgive the fact that there's a Jewish bar, but realistically, it will never say a speech like this. You know what I mean? Like, and it strips away the ridiculousness of this figure who's been mistaken as Hitler.
It's interesting that you say like it's not new, but it's like, I don't know. I don't think everything needs to be new in that sense. Like, there's a reason that we look back at some of these speeches. Like, you know, like I think we look back because,
you know, like Churchill's speeches and like, you know, Martin Luther King's speeches. It's like,
yeah, totally. Like, you know, because we don't want to make the same mistakes. I think that's why we look, or sometimes we are.
Which he warns.
Yeah. Well, like sometimes we are making the same mistakes, and you know, we need to look back and remember, like, you know, that
you and I make Bond episodes all the time. We're still repeating mistakes.
Let's not look back at Bond. Holy shit! How is that like the longest running franchise, dude? Holy shit! It's crazy.
Cinema's crazy, man.
Yeah, cinema's a crazy time.
Man, you got bloody Hitler sometimes, or you got James Bond.
Do you reckon Hitler? Do you reckon if Bill and Ted's Excellent Adventure, do you reckon if they went back like in time, do you reckon they'd pick up Charlie Chaplin?
Oh, I would have loved that, mate.
Do you reckon if they had to do like a film studies like assignment, they'd just go back and get Charlie?
I would love that. Like, that's what they should have done. Like, I remember when we did Bill and Ted, we said like they couldn't incorporate Hitler because it was too dark. That's why they got Napoleon instead. But like, maybe the way they could have gone around it is just get Charles Chaplin as Hitler.
Yeah, I still think I don't want Hitler in Bill and Ted at all. I don't want to see that scene at all.
Again, like, it's a classic example of incongruous subject matter to the talent involved. It's just like,
absolutely. Yeah, I'm sure, you know, the intentions would be correct, and maybe it would work really well, and there'd be something intelligent said. But looking back at that movie, really, what was said? Napoleon likes water slides, as we all know.
Yeah. Before we move on to special segments, Brenton, there is one more thing we need to talk about.
Yeah, okay.
Let's chat about Benito Mussolini.
Oh, yeah, we have to.
We have to. We can't avoid him. He's everywhere. Quick.
So, for some, you know, for those that care about the Oscars, this movie was nominated for a bunch.
Yeah.
So, it had 2 acting nods. One was to Chaplin in the lead, and the second was a supporting actor nod to the dude that played Mussolini. Like, what the fuck?
Jeez. I can't believe he got nominated for an Oscar for this. Like, it's like he's literally making like the Italian like gesture of like mamma mia as he's like walking about. Like,
I think the best moments for him are like when the two of them are obviously like in direct conflict.
Yes.
Like they're directly trying to one-up each other.
Yes.
Like they're the best moments.
There's a scene where literally they are one-upping each other. Like in their little barbershop chairs.
Like, yeah, exactly. Well, the scene where like he comes into his, this is a great gag of like Garbage comes in and goes, oh, hey, like it's all good. Like we're going to make him walk in through the front of the room. He has to walk all the way over here towards you. It's all like, you know, it's all about intimidation.
He's a bust. Get ready for this.
And then he just comes in through the door behind him and slaps him on the back. He goes, hey.
Hey,
like,
it's me, a Mussolini.
so that's funny on its own merit, but then it's funnier like his reaction to being put in the chair opposite, and he's just like sitting like a foot off the ground, and he just looks so insulted, and he's so uncomfortable, and it's such a great moment, like of just him reacting to that for like a good 30 seconds.
Yeah, he's like,
that.
I don't like this chair, and he's like, huff, 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 this is a bad chair.
I'll just stand.
It reminds me, there's a clip of Jimmy Kimmel interviewing President Obama when he was president, and like Obama comes on his show, and the couch was lower than Kimmel's chair. And Obama sits down, and it's very similar. And Obama's like, "Why is your chair higher than mine?" And he's like, "Is this like a weird power thing you're trying to do?" And like Kimmel's sweating because it's the president, and he's just like, and he's like, "Should we do different chairs?" And Obama's like, "Nah, it's all good, man. It's like, you know."
Yeah, totally.
And by the way, I reckon this is something that history has used before. I reckon world leaders, we could name names, are very guilty of doing this.
It's still done today.
I remember that one time you saw Angela Merkel; she was doing it to you, Brenton.
I use it all the time. That's why every time we record, I'm sure to get the higher stool.
My neck is starting to hurt, Brenton. Can you please change your chair?
Absolutely not. Get back in your toddler chair, boy.
Aww.
Special segment.
Ooh, so special. Difficult question, Brenton. Is this movie worth the remake?
No, like it's not. It's not. Like we were discussing before, like I think that, you know, we had Jojo Rabbit come out a couple years ago. There's going to be, this subject matter is always going to be interesting and relevant, and people are always going to make films about this. Film's going to always evolve, and, you know, comedy's always going to evolve as well. So we'll get different.
Humanity's just on like a ride, man.
But at the same time, like Jojo Rabbit's not doing this.
No, exactly. And it's like, because it's such a wide cultural event, you know, that happened over, like, you know, you could do it with like the pre-Nazi years. It's like Cabaret, while dealing at the same kind of time period, is a radically different film to this.
And I'll talk about Jojo Rabbit because it's a, you know, satirical comedy. What's so great about that film is that it deals with the real, like this, I think Great Dictator deals with the personal side of it to a certain extent. But Jojo Rabbit's all about the personal effect of this era and this kind of thinking and what that does to like a little boy, you know, in a small town. Like it's
exactly,
and the conflicts that arise from that. Like it's great in that sense.
I forget what the name of the German film is, but I really would love to see the take on Hitler that the Hitler meme is based on. You know that viral video of like Hitler shouting at his like people in the bunker?
Yeah.
I'd love to see the actual film itself, because I think it's hailed as like a great deconstruction of the movie.
Oh,
you know?
yeah, no, it is.
And
I'm trying to remember the name of the movie.
Like,
yeah.
I think it's a German title as well from memory.
For my mind, I don't think we need a remake directly of this. I think there's always going to be films about this. Yeah.
It'd be interesting, because have you seen RDJ be Chaplin?
No, I haven't. I'd love to watch it.
Because I'm wondering if Great Dictator is in that movie.
I'd say it would be.
Yeah. Because there were points when like Chaplin was doing his thing where I'm like, I can see Robert Downey Jr. doing this.
I don't know if like we'd get, it might just be like a little snippet, like a little moment that he's shooting it on set or whatever. I don't know if there'd be a huge portion of the film dedicated to that. Maybe I'm wrong. Maybe there is, but I think that movie takes how old was he? He was like 90 something when he passed on. Like he had a long life, Charlie.
Died in the late 70s, I think. Like
something crazy like
Chaplin's
that.
life in general is like
time.
insane. Like, if you look at his biography, like, he lived a crazy life. Like, and he got banished from like America and like so. In that sense, like, okay, sure, don't remake it, but like if we had to, Brenton, who would we cast for the future Great Dictator? Because like in the same way when Jojo Rabbit was announced, it was very exciting, the idea of Taika Waititi playing Hitler. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
So who would you want to see play Hitler with this current cast of actors we have in 2021?
I don't know if I want to see someone conventional. You know what I mean? I don't think it has to be.
It's like when you see Lin-Manuel Miranda play Alexander Hamilton. It's like it's such a left field casting decision. You know, would you want that for Hitler?
I'm indifferent. Like I don't mind. I think either or. I think anyone could do it, to be honest.
Yeah.
Like I think
even you, little Timmy, could play Hitler one day as he ruffles the hair.
Yeah, I just think as long as there's like an understanding of, you know, what, you know, they're doing in that moment. Like, you know, like honestly, like you said RDJ, like he could easily do it. Like it'd be interesting. I think anyone could do it. You know, I think it's so ripe to have something, you know, interesting done with it. Like you mentioned Taika, like, you know, that was such a great idea. That was such a Sam Rockwell. Like, could you imagine that? Like, getting in there and having a crack. So yeah, I don't think there's any limit. Like even Kevin Hart. Like I know we mentioned him before, but I was like, little Kevin Hart running around like trying to be the bigger man, like, you know, with the context of him being Hitler.
I think there's something you can do with it, and there's great comedic space. In the same way you can tell a joke about anything, there's great comedic space you can do in the Second World War. So yeah. I'm all for it, man.
All that being said, should we get to your favorite segment of the show?
Ooh, it's blinding.
What Stills This Movie is a segment on the show where you or I, or both of us together, we pick a single frame from the film we are reviewing. And we pick this on the basis of it being a great piece of cinematography, or it just being, you know, maybe interesting on its own merit, or just a bit funny. Nathan, you chose today. I swear to God, I thought I was going to win this. Today's
is just a little bit funny, isn't it?
but Nathan stole the show, and as always, the chief still chooser. He came up with this piece of gold.
Look, when it comes to identifying stupidity, no one does it better than me, frankly. Because I'm so used to it in the mirror. Oh, he sheds tears.
Chortle.
There's a scene, and you'd blink and you'd miss it. But like Hitler's just doing his thing, he's working about during the day. We haven't even mentioned the painters, like his daily routine. They're all funny. But he has a guy, a stormtrooper, as it were, working for him, whose literal job is just to lick an envelope. And because, you wouldn't see Hitler doing that in his day. So the frame
absolutely not.
Is this guy, and please look at this photo. It's the funniest shit you'll see all week. This guy just leaning forward and just licking this envelope with the most vacant, dead-eyed stare in the distance I think I've ever seen in my life.
Nathan, what I think makes this moment, though, in the film, and because I laughed out loud when this happened, because it was just so...
It's so quick as well. It's like half a second.
Yeah, but I like it because it's quick.
Don't you?
Chaplin's brilliant. Chaplin's a brilliant actor because he's just so... In this moment, he's so nonchalant.
Yeah, he's so present. He's just in the middle of his work.
He's just... Exactly. Like, it's just a nothing thing. It's just he puts the envelope up, lick, done, and he just moves on. It is... And because of that, it's just the absurdity is just like even more highlighted. So funny. And it's absolutely hilarious. Yeah. Again, this still kind of speaks for itself, so go check it out on our Instagram, links below.
Well, hey!
Hey!
Let's look at this film's poster.
Banter.
Yes,
Let's look at this film's poster.
but is it art?
I am not the biggest fan.
It's a very mustardy yellow kind of poster.
Which I don't... yeah. Actually, I do mind.
I mean, the balloon globe makes an appearance. That's exciting.
Yeah, I like that. I like everything that's going on in the top right-hand corner. I think that is kind of spot on. I always like the top right-hand corner, let me tell you.
Ooh, don't give him a book, listeners.
I don't think that she needs to be on the poster.
No, because she's not that prominent. Fun fact, she was his wife at the time.
Oh, I didn't know that, but there you go. There you go.
I do my research.
That makes sense because she looks a lot younger than him in the movie. Like
he was very guilty of that. Chaplin was very guilty of being with younger women.
Absolutely.
I don't know. Like this is not what I'd want from this poster. I kind of want to see him like addressing a crowd almost, with like or he's like doing his dictating thing.
Like I said, like I'm okay. I think it works with the world and him behind it. I think get rid of
his face though.
I think get rid of him. I think make that image make it more central. I guess a different background color is definitely necessary.
Also, different font. The Great Dictator logo looks like something you get in like a tomato can.
Absolutely, yeah.
Coming to your store now, the Great Dictator.
So yeah, top right. I think all that works. I think just change the background, change the aesthetic, change the font, and we're kind of good to go.
Change literally everything.
Maybe the plane of them flying upside down from the start with the pocket watch hanging out could be going above them.
Yeah, that'd be fun. You think the whole movie there it's upside down? It's like, when will we ever get things right? That can be the slogan, the little tagline.
When will we ever get things right? I like it, Nathan.
Oh.
So, title talk then.
Ooh, it's the title.
The Great Dictator.
Was he great? I don't think he's a great dictator. I wouldn't call him a great dictator, Brenton. I think he's a terrible dictator.
I think again, great is probably...
But it's used ironically, isn't
exactly. Like, with... I can't really imagine anything else this film would be called, to be honest. Like, The Barber and Hitler, The Barber and Hinkle. Hinkle and the Barber.
Hitler and I.
Yeah. Hinkle and the Barber.
To cut a great dictator. to give a shave.
To shave a dick.
Yeah. Oh wow, Brenton. Yeah, I don't know what I call it either. It is such a prominent title, and it's done so. It is satire. It lets you know it's satire because if Hitler's not a great dictator. Yeah, that's also what I find really interesting because the speech obviously ends the film, and it should, but we never find out what happens after that. Like we never get closure on this kind of nation or this failure of men.
No, it kind of ends on more of a metaphorical message of her being out in the fields and
which I did think actually it needed. I think we could have just had the speech and then have it fade to black.
I agree. I do agree.
It's a bit cheesy. I was just like, I hear him. I let us rise together.
I don't know if she's hearing him, but I think it's more kind of metaphorical in the sense of listen, it's
felt a little bit like propaganda in that sense.
Which it kind of was.
It was.
Yeah,
I mean, let's not beat around
this
the
movie's
bush,
got a clear message for the time. Yeah.
Yeah. It's like I wonder if he liked Hitler or not.
Must have loved the guy. Yeah. I think The Great Dictator does work.
Yeah, I guess. Because we're not as creative, Brenton. I guess that's why we're stumped.
Well, should we pass the power to the people?
Pass it.
Pass it here.
What?
The power to the people.
So if you guys head over to the Rotten Tomato meter, you will find that this movie has a critical consensus of 93%, very high, with an audience score that is even higher, sitting at 95%.
Yeah, and this thing fucking swept with the cash. It cost $2 million to make back then, and it made $5 million boy. Chaplin's rolling in the green.
Oh, isn't he? David Parkinson from Empire Magazine gave it a positive review and said, though the slapstick may seem tired now, there are moments of greatness. I couldn't have said that better myself.
Do you think it would work without the slapstick if they just took out the slapstick sequences?
If they were to make it again, if they were to make this today, it would be very different. But I think it does. I think there is something in that. Like, I do think that there are moments where it really works, and I think the slapstick does work. Yeah, like when it opened, I was like, this isn't going to work. Oh dear. And then I did a total 180, I guess.
There you go. Alexander C. gave it 5 stars, Brent.
Cheers, Alex.
And wrote, if Germans saw this movie in 1940, World War II wouldn't exist.
I completely disagrey.
I disagree too.
Yeah.
It wasn't shown in Germany for a long time. I know that.
And I think Alexander, I think that even if this was shown over there, like, I think we'd like to think that it would make a big difference to the way. Obviously, it would never have been shown.
But I think cinema's a little bit arrogant in that sense. Like, cinema always overstates its importance.
Yeah, and I think, like, even though it would never have been viewed in Germany because of the propaganda machine over there, but I think, like, the way that Hitler rose to power and the way that he took control of that nation, I just don't think that. And we saw what happened to people that tried to speak out against him. Like,
we did. Yeah, it's funny. There's great historical debate on whether Hitler himself saw this movie, because there's no real clear-cut answer. There's people who grew up close to him that said he did see this. There are a couple in his close circle who said no, he saw it, and I think he saw it twice or something like that. Because remember, the man, similar to Trump, we know they're not the same people, but they both shared that vanity where they enjoyed seeing themselves in the media. Yeah. So historians have not arrived at consensus at whether Hitler saw it or not. But I like to think that he did see it. Like Chaplin, when he was interviewed about it in the 60s, he said he would give everything just to know what Hitler thought of the movie.
That's so interesting, dude. Yeah,
the Hitler himself may have seen something.
You'd love to have known if he'd seen it. Yeah, and exactly that, what he would have thought of. And I agree. I tend to think that he probably would have watched it 2 or 3 times. And
bring Hitler on the show, Brenton. Let's ask him what he thought of the
Let's
movie.
not. Cole W gave it 3.5 stars and said, I didn't love the movie, like most people did, but I did enjoy it, and Charlie Chaplin's very powerful speech at the end alone makes the movie worth watching. Nathan, forgive me if I am wrong in saying this, but I think this is more in line with what you thought on the film.
I don't think it makes the whole movie worth watching, but it definitely echoes things where I'm like, the speech is so bloody good. It's like, you know what I mean? Yeah. It's like you've been eating Brussels sprouts and out of nowhere come a chocolate cake. You're like, oh, I did get that chocolate cake at the end, It's like...
Yeah. And like you said, like, people are going to watch that speech. People are probably familiar with that speech. They probably, even if they don't know it's from this film. It's so famous in that sense. Yeah. And I guess that leads us on to the next point as well.
Rox290 said, I don't think people realize how brave he was for doing this. And you're right. Like, it's amazing that, because I read a story where, like, he went to Berlin or something like that, and, like, he got harassed. This is, like, before World War II. And, like, I think it was almost a response to that. I'm trying to imagine today, like, the audacity of a filmmaker to really call out a current world leader and just, like, really portray them as they are. You know what I mean?
I'm trying to think as well, I'm trying
to think of, like, what the contemporary version of this. Thankfully, there aren't as many bad people in the world leading nations right now. They're still out there, by the way. But, like, it's like, okay, it's like when bloody James Franco did The Interview about Kim Jong-un.
Oh yeah, that's a great example. There you go. There's one. And we saw the shit show that caused. Yeah.
Yeah. It's the reason Sony got hacked. I guess that's our contemporary reference for it. And I'd definitely call James Franco brave for doing that. Much braver than he was in Spider-Man 3. So like,
hey, spoilers for Spider-Man 3, but he jumped in front of that glider. That's all I'm gonna say.
He did do that.
He did that.
The Osborns and gliders just shouldn't go together.
Yeah, just
right?
keep them away. Keep them away. They're not a good mix. Keep them in the closet. Just not the Osborns, the gliders, and just make sure that those blades are never drawn. Just
Oh jeez.
Herpy Depth. Ironic how a silent film actor made the greatest movie speech of all time that is relevant even to today.
Yeah, I wish we saw him talk more. Because he was a very well-spoken man.
He was. You can tell that he's got that classical training happening. You know what I mean? Well, name drop of the show. But,
just a reminder, you're listening to Classic Movie Banter. It's like, we should do that radio thing. Radio stations always remind you that you're listening to like 102.9 or whatever. Yeah. We should just do that every 10 minutes.
Just a reminder, you're listening to Classic Movie Banter. You can find us on Apple Podcasts, YouTube, SoundCloud, and Spotify. Listen in when you're free. New episode every Monday. Anyway, as I was saying about Herpy Depth, I tend to agree with this statement, and I think it's funny because like there's so many rolled R's, there's so much enunciating in this speech, like it's very, but despite all that, all that technique, like the passion behind what he's saying is there, similar to the passion perhaps that
you're getting some Wuthering Heights flashbacks.
Oh mate, you stole my line. Similar to
I've done it again.
Similar to the passion that Sir Laurence Olivier showed.
Can you give me a haunt, Brenton?
I want you to haunt me. I want you to haunt me for the rest of my days.
Oh, Wuthering Heights, you shit film. And lastly, Do You Even JC gave it 4.5 stars, Brenton, and they wrote, the official better than Juno seal.
What does this mean? Sorry, I don't understand what this is referring to or what it means or what.
So, better than Juno, I assume he is saying that this movie is better than the movie Juno, which you've seen, right?
Yeah.
Yeah, with pregnant Ellen Page being like, do I abort? Who knows? Let's talk about this topic.
What a weird comparison.
What a weird comparison. that this like, that's why I put this in to compare the Great Dictator to Juno. It's like, you know, like, I like Juno. Have you seen Juno?
Do you reckon Michael Cera could play Hitler?
Now that's a movie, right? Mate, you've done it. That's it.
I feel like
that's the Great Dictator. We've done it.
I feel like it'd be similar to his interpretation of himself in, is it The World's End or whatever that film is called that where it's like all those again, James Franco, it's all those comedy gang and playing themselves and whatnot, and he's the coke addict. Like, imagine like Hitler just like running around like connected to addicted to some substance and just like such a narcissist.
That's a movie we got to see, mate.
Michael Cera, if you're out there, we just gave you an interesting pitch for an idea.
That's your next project.
Yeah, but hey, for now,
that
was the Great Dictator.
There he was, and there he goes, and thankfully he will dictate no more.
Well, guys, thank you so much for joining us again for another episode of Classic Movie Banter. You know that podcast, you can find it at Apple Podcasts, Spotify, SoundCloud, YouTube.
Whatever you're listening to us on, you can find us there. And if you want to get in touch, we got all the things. We got the Insta, we got the Twitter, we got email, we've got the comment section. And get in touch!
Do we have a MySpace?
We will. Okay, I'm going to put the foot down, Brenton. We will never have a MySpace.
Fair enough.
Oh, because we're not going to make the top 8 listener friends, you know. It's like, we're launching our brand new show. We've got a new show,
We're
Brenton.
launching a new show.
Fire the rockets!
Feature Fridays with the Banter Boys.
Yeah, so this is a brand new show, listeners. It'd be so great if we had your support because it's for you. It's driven by you. It's for you. It's like by the listeners for the listeners.
We're here to serve.
And it's a show. It's really short. It's going to be about 15 minutes or so every week, and it's just us chatting about what's happening in movies that week and doing topics based on what you guys are suggesting. So
this show is going to be driven by you, our lovely audience, and we can't wait to get started and to have this conversation with you guys and see what we talk about.
Yeah, because we love chatting about classics, but if you listen to the show, you know we also love chatting about movies today. So this kind of gives us a window to do that.
Yeah.
Yeah. So every week as we do this, we'll actually get to chat on the air about all the stuff that we're saying about the movies on the podcast.
Absolutely.
So have a chat to us because we're so excited to kind of read out what you guys are saying and then chat about it a little further. So tell all your friends and fam or whatever that if you want to hear about movies and they're about today rather than classics, this is the show for you.
Yeah, it's a perfect opportunity to touch base with our audience and continue the conversation outside of just classic movie banter.
So come chat to us then. We'll talk more about Dictator then. We'll talk about what's happening in the week, all this fun stuff. So hit us up. We'll see you soon. And go onto our Insta for the polls.
Please, #join the banter. Get on board. This train's steaming into the station. You know what I mean? Like,
choo choo,
choo choo, ka-choo.
Well, it was great to talk to you this week about the Great Dictator, Brenton. Everyone, have a fun week. Love you all. Many hugs and kisses, you know. Be grateful. We're not living in a time with the Great Dictator.
Yeah, you just sending out all the love today. You just got so much love in your heart.
I really am. For the malice that this film conjured, I got to replace it with love. So I love you, listeners, most of all, you know.
Can I ask you a question quickly, just to end the show right now?
Of course.
Do you hate slapstick because you are actually a master of it?
Mate, I hate slapstick because too often I get slapped with sticks.
See you next week, guys.